quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
A bipartisan House group reveals a new school security vision. We'll have the details. The Senate's top leader says teacher tenure may stifle public education innovation, and the lottery gets honest, say some House members. Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. Thanks for watching Legislative Week in Review. Our top story this week begins in the House, where a bipartisan group says its new school security bill covers the concerns raised by the political left and political right. State funding would help hire guards, school counselors, and wire our schools with alarms. A bipartisan House group earned bipartisan committee approval of new legislation to improve public and charter school security. Between the years 2013 and 2015, $20 million in new state grants would help local school systems hire and train resource officers for elementary and middle school campuses.
Will this bill offer a 100% secure blanket of safety to our children and our students? The answer is no. I don't think any bill can do that. But without question, this bill does some common sense things that will help us and help make our schools safe.
Lawmakers have questioned the parameters for exactly who can volunteer to be a school resource officer.
Can anybody volunteer, or do they have to have some type of police training or something close to that, or is anybody can say, hey, I want to be a
To qualify as a volunteer, you have to have that police training in your background. Again, that goes to the confidence that the public has that these are school resource officers. We also put in there additional volunteer for a military police background. So one of those two qualifies you.
The House bill would require every public school to install a direct line panic button to local law enforcement agencies. The state would offer 2-year grants to hire additional school guidance counselor, and these counselors would see those extra job duties like being a school's standardized test coordinator lifted by state mandate. Counselors would be told to focus on counseling.
Which is, if we're going to have school counselors and we're going to have additional school counselors, they ought to be told that they can just do their job as opposed to being given everybody else's job to do. So no longer would school counselors be assigned testing coordinator full-time responsibilities as opposed to really acting as guidance counselor for kids, which is what we want them to be doing.
Local schools would hold annual school safety drills, and every school district would open an anonymous tip line for receiving suspicious behavior reports. School employees would have a say and vote by secret ballot to approve any school safety improvement plan, with local school boards receiving final review.
I hope that as we just enact this legislation, hopefully, that we will do more than that, that we will ensure that the techniques that are applied through this legislation in the classroom are actually techniques that provide the most successful outcomes should the worst possible incident occur.
The chiefs and sheriffs are certainly on board. They are willing and want to work with the schools, and the schools certainly are willing to work with law enforcement, because we've all seen what the problem is.
Elements of this House school security bill would take effect this July 1st in time for the traditional public school year. But the new hirings of counselors and school resource officers, along with panic alarm installations, will come online on a rolling basis. The Senate Finance Committee approved a bill to create a state charter school board of education. The Finance Committee handles bills that affect taxes and tax policy, so Democrats on that committee were asking about the tax implications of someone donating land and maybe buildings to create a charter school campus.
I can't see why they would be subject to property taxes, since they're going to be deducting a charitable gift, number one. Number two, it's used for educational purposes. Just like the buildings that our public schools sit on, our traditional public schools, they don't pay any property taxes.
The Senate Appropriations Committee hears the bill next. The House approves requiring students to earn at least just one arts education credit before graduation. The legislation would require that student to earn that credit at some point in their middle or high school career. That's 7 school years. The final vote was a bipartisan 98-19.
I think everybody in here recognizes that the #1 driver with companies looking to recruit people to work for them is creativity and innovation.
Senate Republicans are pushing education reform for a second legislative session. They say enhancing elementary school literacy efforts and ending teacher tenure could be the tonic for what's allegedly ailing North Carolina public schools.
Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger personally presented his Excellent Schools Act legislation to the Senate Education Committee this week. This bill would establish teacher merit pay, end tenure for experienced teachers, and require that every public school receive an easy-to-understand A through F letter grade for overall academic achievement.
We wanted to emphasize the importance of reading as the essential tool for kids to be successful in school. We wanted to emphasize that by making sure that kids are able to read to the extent that that child has the ability by the end of the third grade.
Most of this week's debate and focus was on teacher tenure. Alamance-Burlington School Board member Jackie Cole says teachers will likely sue the state of North Carolina if tenure is removed from educators she says have earned a protected job status.
While school board members voted 3 years ago to add eliminating career status to the statewide association's legislative agenda, it was with a caveat that all teachers who had earned career status and those employed with the understanding they would have an opportunity to earn it would be grandfathered.
This proposed legislation fails to grandfather teachers who currently have career status, a property right we are confident will be protected by our courts. We submit that if the North Carolina Senate concentrated on the implementation of the current law, a law that the North Carolina School Administrators endorses, that the North Carolina School Board Association endorses, then true reform could occur.
In many respects, people believe that tenure or career status acts as an impediment rather than an enhancement of ensuring that we have high-quality teachers in front of our kids.
School system leaders testify that they support Senator Berger's Excellent Schools Act. They see it as an opportunity to change North Carolina public education.
I truly believe that building an infrastructure to make this work requires time and requires fine-tuning. And it's essential that we build that fine-tuning, and I believe that we're not there yet. I really believe we need to fine-tune it. I see the fine-tuning taking place, Senator Berger, right now, but we need some more time to build on that.
The bill heads to the Senate Appropriations Committee.
Let's break down this Excellent Schools Act that's in the Senate. Experienced teachers, that's teachers with more than 3 years experience, you would lose tenure under this Senate bill, but you could earn 1 to 4 year long employment contracts for being effective. Ineffective teachers would not have their contracts renewed. That would end their employment. State employees who are not teachers would receive 5 hours of leave monthly to volunteer in literacy programs in our public schools. Prospective teaching students would need an 1100 SAT score minimum to major in teacher education in college. There is no concrete language in this bill establishing the merit pay system. The bill says it is the General Assembly's intent to create a merit pay system. The House and Senate have passed separate bills to require newborn babies be checked for heart defects. The newborn screening program would accept this new assignment in addition to its current hearing testing and educational services it provides for parents. Babies' hearts can be checked using a process called pulse oximetry, and many hospitals have the handheld device to do that test. The Senate approved the House bill allowing the city of Charlotte to renovate Bank of America Stadium. The city needs state approval to shift sales tax revenue away from the Charlotte Convention Center and into Panther Stadium upgrades and amateur sports programs around the city. The city proposed some new sales taxes to pay this bill, but state GOP leaders rejected that idea in favor of letting the city shift tax revenue.
Sports and entertainment is a major part of North Carolina economy, and those local urban areas are working towards making sure that that's a good effort across North Carolina.
Both legislative chambers passed this week resolutions honoring the memory of Ruth Bell Graham while naming her husband, Reverend Billy Graham, as North Carolina's favorite son.
Billy Graham says he sees himself as just a messenger. And I think that type of humility is rare in this world. Humility is understanding your place and your role and not rising above that.
My mother has always said, and many others, that behind every man there's a good woman. So we know she had to be a great woman to stand behind such a great man.
The resolution asked Governor Pat McCrory to schedule a day to honor Reverend Billy Graham. The House followed the Graham family honors this week by passing a resolution supporting Prayer Week. Governor McCrory issued a proclamation for a week of prayer. This House resolution honors former President George Washington and encourages North Carolinians to pray for our state year-round.
So I would respectfully suggest that although we do many important things here, none are more important than what we do here today in renewing our dedication to God and to prayer as our founders have from the beginning.
The House Elections Committee resumed debate on voter ID legislation. It was another week of public input just before legislative debate kicks off.
The House Elections Committee continued discussing the voter ID bill it revealed last week. Speakers this week were offered invitations to testify. If you followed the recent public hearings on voter ID before this committee, you'll notice the experts didn't say anything much different.
And your decision during Holy Week to crucify voting rights. You've launched an all-out war on voting. Your voter suppression tactics make it harder to vote, while at the same time you are making it easier to get guns. And this combination is almost identical to the policy directions of the white Southern strategy that was used by Richard Nixon.
Indiana Secretary of State Legal Counsel Jerry Bonnet testified. He oversaw voter ID in practice in Indiana elections last decade.
Despite projections and studies that prognosticated many individuals not being able to vote, widespread voter disenfranchisement, different types of doom and gloom. That isn't what happened.
Republicans say they have covered the potential holes into which voters with no photo ID may fall and thus not be able to vote. The state will offer free IDs and free documents like birth certificates should a voter need one to get a state photo ID. Representative Harry Warren says the voter ID bill will create a voter database, including facial recognition software that will streamline voter authenticity procedures.
The system for voting can be so simple that you go up to your poll, identify yourself, they confirm your address, type in your name, and your picture pops up. This program that we're looking at and considering, that program would have to have the latest state-of-the-art technology and software in it, things that might incorporate facial software.
House Elections Committee leaders say they're expecting to vote in committee on voter ID next week, but they are still listening for suggestions because this one bill has so many moving parts.
Here are some of the voter ID bill's provisions. First, this photo ID would be a strict requirement for every election beginning January 1st, 2016. A voter information verification advisory board would be created by the state. This is a board that would go out and promote voter registration, would help poll workers on election day, would provide educational materials to people, and help voters who have no photo ID get that identification card and then cast a ballot. Expired photo IDs could be used if they've been expired for 10 years or less. Older voters, let's say you're over 70, maybe 80, you could use any form of ID with any expiration date as long as that card was active when you turned 70 years old. Another House bill is on the table. This one would require local elections boards to speed up the purging of county voter rolls. County elections boards would make forms available to survivors of a deceased voter. Funeral directors would be encouraged to offer these documents when people are making their arrangements, which would result in the dead voter being removed from the voter registration books. This easier voter roll cleanup form would be available if this bill becomes law on July 1st, 2013. The Senate Transportation Committee easily approved the proposal to help homebound people get photographic ID cards from the state of North Carolina. The State Department of Transportation would receive the flexibility to make this ID program happen. The bill only tells DOT officials, create a program that does not require a personal appearance. The law does define a homebound person, someone living with a severe disability or has a written medical declaration from their doctor certifying they are homebound. The House unanimously backs a new infrastructure property tax deferral program. Fancy name, here's what it does. If investors install infrastructure to prepare land for business or industrial activity, they could defer the property taxes on that higher tax value because they upgraded. Tax payments would be triggered when construction permits are issued, the land is rezoned for non-business or industrial purposes, or if the investor sells the land before building on it. The Senate passed legislation to relax water use restrictions on private land. The bill passed the Senate last session. The House blocked it. It allows state officials to promote water conservation measures while preventing those same state officials from creating restrictive water use policies on property owners if the neighboring properties are not affected.
If water is wholly on your property, whether it be in an impoundment, a pond, a well, that water, you have the right to use that water. It's your water. Now, if water is passing through your property, comes in and leaves your property, you do not have the same right as you do as if it's wholly on your property.
The bill goes to the House next. House Republicans are discussing wind energy and that sector's impact on North Carolina's military economy and operations. Some proposed locations for wind farms are located near military bases, Goldsboro Seymour Johnson Air Force Base being one of them. Any company proposing a wind farm would include an impact statement on civil or military air installations.
This is extremely important to support all of our military areas, and I think Goldsboro is just a focal point. And I think this does not limit DENR also from adding regulations to fill in the gaps we've been talking about.
The House approved state lottery reform legislation this week. Supporters say this bill's the one that will keep the lottery, quote, honest. It's their words. Because lottery players, you may not know the lottery odds are stacked against you.
This week's House passage of the Honest Lottery Act included rhetoric on the honesty or the alleged dishonesty of the creation and promotion of the North Carolina Education Lottery.
I have a paper you can read, eight little rules the House broke to pass the lottery. But nevertheless, we have it. This bill does not repeal the lottery. It just makes it a little bit more honest.
Supporters of the Honest Lottery Act say players do not realize the long-shot odds of winning the jackpot. They also say lottery advertising greatly overstates the value of the lottery jackpots, which reflect the amount won if you accept a multiple-decade annuity over that lump sum payment. Cumberland County Representative Rick Glazier says he voted to create this lottery, and it has disappointed him.
When this lottery was created, the argument that came against it that I rejected, and a number of my colleagues, was that this would not be a supplanting of funds. It really was meant to supplement educational funds, and that it would not hurt bond issues back home and would not hurt the political will of the General Assembly to fund education outside of the lottery. I have turned out to be wrong.
The Honest Lottery Act would require clear labeling and information regarding your odds of winning down to the smallest advertised prize. The lottery would be forbidden from sponsoring high school or collegiate sporting events. Sampson County Representative Larry Bell supported the lottery's creation years ago, but he says lawmakers should either support the lottery wholly and do it right or open debate on repealing the lottery.
If you're going to have it, you need to advertise it because that's part of it. And if you're going to do away with it, then that's another vote for another day. And that's what we should be thinking about, either doing away with it, but if you're going to have it, then we need to do it all the way and get all the revenue that we can from it.
Lottery tickets could not feature any cartoon characters, and the types of lottery games offered in North Carolina would be permanently frozen. Lottery opponents like Representative Paul Stam say this is not a bill designed to kill the lottery. That would be, maybe could be, another day's debate.
The House endorses legislation directing area crime labs to destroy blood and DNA samples after a process. Blood or urine samples, the ones that are analyzed chemically for alcohol and drugs, could be destroyed after 1 year in storage. A court order could preserve all evidence. Defendants with DNA on record with state authorities could request it be destroyed. The state would have 60 days to accept or reject that request.
they're becoming quite a mass amount of things that need to be stored, and they would like some clarification on exactly when they can dispose of evidence without someone objecting.
The House is backing the Senate bill commonly called Lily's Law. It expands the legal definition of murder in North Carolina. Babies who are born alive but then die from injuries caused to the mother while she was pregnant are the victims to be protected. The attackers would then face murder charges upon the baby's death.
The bill specifies that it constitutes murder where a child is born alive but dies as a result of injuries inflicted prior to the child being born alive. The degree of murder, first and second degree, would be determined in accordance to applicable law.
There is a carve-out for the mother's behavior. If she does something that causes her baby's death, she would not be subject to Lily's Law. Senate Republicans want mandatory drug testing for people seeking TANF benefits. The drug testing costs would fall on the individual applicant and not the state. Applicants would be told up front they'd be required to submit the drug testing. Anyone who applies for benefits and fails the drug test can reapply for benefits once they test clean and can prove it. Children under 18 years old who receive benefits would not be drug tested. This bill would take effect immediately in North Carolina if it can become law. Prescription drug tracking got a boost in North Carolina. A patient's name, address, and phone number are already required when controlled substances are dispensed. The state wants more information. They want information on how that patient paid for the drug and proof the pharmacy checked the patient's photo ID during the purchase. The bill would allow state officials to review accounts for suspicious drug buying trends of patients.
We are awash in prescription drug diversion, prescription drug misuse, abuse, overdose, and death.
And at the present rate here in North Carolina, within 5 years or less, drug-induced deaths will be the leading cause of death in this state.
The House approved tougher measures to prevent criminal fugitives from receiving welfare benefits. Federal law prevents people with outstanding arrest warrant from receiving any benefits, but this state bill would require state social workers and social services departments to conduct criminal background checks when people come in and apply for benefits. The arrest warrant information under current law can't be shared with local law enforcement. Under this bill, they'd be required to share it with police.
We're not talking about people who have served their time. We're talking about parole and probation violators that are absconders from justice.
The bill heads to the Senate. The Senate easily passed a proposal forbidding the firing of guns inside a building in an attempt to intimidate someone inside that building. This bill would also cover the firing of weapons inside building structures, even motor vehicles. Forsyth County Senator Pete Brunstetter explains a law loophole he found.
Right now, it's a felony to shoot into a building, but once you walk across that threshold and make the very same act, it is no longer a felony. This makes discharging a firearm within an enclosure with the intent to incite fear punishable as a Class E felony.
The House will consider this piece of legislation next. The Senate easily approved legislation that could raise interstate highway speed limits. Wake County Republican Senator Neil Hunt proposes giving the DOT power to set a 75-mile-per-hour speed limit on certain stretches of interstate highways. The DOT would have all and final say. He says the higher speed limits will not break federal highway funding rules. The House is considering fundamental changes to how North Carolina vehicle insurance rates are crafted. North Carolina is statistically a top 10 state for low or affordable insurance rates. Supporters of limiting the rate bureau that's been around for decades say it's Southern drivers, not this rate bureau, that makes our rates so good. North Carolina law mandates that a rate bureau meet to collectively establish vehicle insurance policy rates in the state. Sponsors of House Bill 265 say this rate bureau is outdated and it's not needed to maintain current car insurance pricing.
I don't think that overall, when you take all of the premium paid by all the drivers in North Carolina, this is going to be a magic bullet or a poison pill. It's not going to be something that's going to lower overall premium payments, 30% 30%, and it's certainly not going to raise them that much. We've kind of hearing both sides of that somewhat.
The legislation would let insurance companies opt out of the rate bureau. These companies could then increase or decrease their own policy rates by up to 7% every year. The Commissioner of Insurance could object within 60 days. That would spark a series of hearings on the pricing dispute. Supporters of House Bill 265 say they've been compromising. They've been giving more power to the Commissioner while dialing back what would have been a 12% pricing adjustment window for insurance companies.
We've also made sure that the Commissioner has 60 days to respond to any flex rating, and so nothing's going to go into effect within 60 days of any filing, and so the Commissioner still has complete control.
The legislation would take effect in 2015. Critics say the Rate Bureau is the key to lower priced and effective vehicle insurance rates in North Carolina, but those behind this bill say the Rate Bureau stifles the free market, may keep insurance companies out of North Carolina, and is preventing insurance products popular with customers in other states from being offered here. It's been a busy week here at the legislature. If you missed something, find us online, ask us a question. Facebook's a great place to find us, facebook.com/legweek. We are on Twitter throughout the week. Our Twitter name is @LegWeekInReview. And if you have comments, email us. We will write back and reply, legweek@unctv.org. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.